So there are many, many facets to the experience of flow. I use the word flow for any kind of change other than the abrupt vanishings. I have you work with the experience of something vanishing as a special case of change. That has a special significance because each time you notice something vanish, for just a fraction of a second, your attention is adverted, turned towards a place that's outside of place and outside of time. That instant of vanishing turns you just instantaneously towards the unborn source. The place where A disappears to is exactly the place that gives birth to B in the next instant of experience. So when I have you work with the theme of change or impermanence, you note vanishings, and then all other kinds of change, anything. I just use the word flow just to have a nice name for it. So how can things flow? Well, it's nothing mystical, smishtical. Something can get more intense or it can get less intense. If you've ever noticed something get more intense or less intense, you've experienced flow, as I've described it. A sensation could spread or it could collapse. Something could speed up your thoughts, or a certain sensation someplace, its frequency could speed up or it could slow down. There could be inward pressures, outward pressures. Even the scattering of your awareness, which is usually looked upon as a problem. It's like I'm all over the place. That could simply be looked upon as a kind of expansive flow. And the gripping and holding, the obsessing, the not being able to let go of something, or something holding you so you can't get free from it, that certainly could be interpreted as a problem, or it could be interpreted as simply a form of contractive flow. And in that sense, not a problem. So as you're paying attention to the kinds of ordinary experiences that I just mentioned, things get more intense, less intense, speed up, slow down, spread, collapse. There's inward pressure force, outward pressure force, scattering, gripping. As you're paying attention to that, you could notice that all of the things that I've mentioned involve an interplay of contrasts. There's like, okay, it can push out, it can push in. It can get more intense, it can get less intense. So if we were to abstract from this situation, we could say that there's two basic principles underlying flow. A principle of increase, a principle of decrease. And there's many, many flavors and dimensions within which the increase and decrease can express itself. And so we can give a general term to the principle of increase. We can call it expansion if you wish. And then we can give a general term to the principle of decrease. We can call it contraction. In between increase and decrease is a balance point that we could call zero if we were using an additive metaphor. With regards to all of the different flavors that I mentioned, as you're paying attention to things speeding up, slowing down, getting more intense, less intense, pushing out, pulling in, scattering, gripping, you might get a sense that accompanying each one of these flavors of expansion and contraction is a sense that space itself is expanding. The space of the experience is expanding or contracting. If, as you're practicing, that theme should come up, you pay attention to expansion, contraction. It has many, many guises, some of them not all that pleasant. But you might notice that there's always an increase in space. Actually, it's an increase in time-space. Time-space gets inflated when things tends to get inflated, when things intensify, when they speed up, when there's outward pressure, et cetera, et cetera. Then space or time-space tends to collapse. So you could tune into the spaceness associated with the flow of expansive and contractive flavors. And to the extent that you would tune into the spaceness, you are tuning into the spacious nature of consciousness. This is a phrase that's used very much in the Dzogchen tradition of Tibetan practice. They talk about spaciousness. Spaciousness is maybe not the best English word because it implies a pre-existing, solidified stage called space that somehow you're supposed to get in contact with. But I'm sure that that's not what that tradition is aiming at when they say spaciousness, because that's just a solidified perception. Spaciousness is the space nature of experience. When you have a complete experience, it's utterly rich but utterly transparent, and so presents itself as space itself. Sasaki Roshi says you must reach the point in your practice where when you laugh, space is laughing, and when you cry, space is crying. And it's very enigmatic. You can't guess what's he talking about. But then, in a few months or a few years or a few decades, you have this experience. Oh yeah, of course, that would be the way to describe this. So if you can fight long enough against spaciness, the reward you get is, quote, spaciousness, which is really spaceness. It may seem bleak, but it incorporates the richness of everything within it.